Let's talk very briefly about Project 3. Again, I'm going to assume you've already read the assignment sheet, and if you haven't, please pull it up, read it, and then come back and we can chat about it. This is going to look a lot like your Project 2 in terms of its formatting. It's going to be an essay. It's going to be about 2 pages long. If it extends on to a 3rd or 4th page, I'm not going to ding you for that, but we're looking for something succinct. Now, what you're especially paying attention to in this project is every argument against the position you are taking. So before you can write this paper, you got to know what position you're going to take, okay, what you're going to be arguing for. And as it says in the assignment sheet, partly this project is a test about whether or not you've chosen something that is contestable. Can people actually reasonably disagree? Now, in the past, I've had students sometimes say, well, the position I'm taking is the only ethical position. I don't know how anyone could disagree. I just feel like I need to make my position known. I want to inform people. Okay, a couple of thoughts. One, remember in this class, you've got to make an argument. So if you can't come up with any kind of arguing, any kind of debate, any counter positions, you might want to reconsider what topic you really want to pursue, and you also might consider refining your thesis statement into something that addresses that topic, but a contestable aspect of that topic. Just to give you an example, there are often kind of 2 kinds of arguments that you can make. One is that we need to adopt this particular position or idea about the subject that I'm looking at, and I need to convince you that there is a problem and you need to agree with me about what the theoretical answer is. The other kind of argument is a bit more applicable when you've got something that everyone agrees is a problem. Everyone agrees that something needs to be done. And then the argument isn't necessarily that something should be done. The argument is what should be done. Just to pick a very broad example, and this is too broad to write an 8 to 10 page research paper about, but if you're talking about fixing the economy or fixing education, okay, that probably is something that is so broad, everyone agrees we need good schools in this country. Everyone agrees we need to have a healthy economy. In that case, what people argue about is how. And when you're thinking about audience, when you're thinking about stakeholders, when you're thinking about counter-arguments, you're not thinking about people who disagree with the idea that we need to reform these things. We're talking about people who disagree about what changes should be made and the kind of ideology and foundations and thoughts that drive that argument. Okay? So, if you're looking at your topic and you're just not sure who your opposition is, think about whether you're dealing with something that maybe has different arguments about how to solve it. You can't argue for every solution. You're arguing for a specific solution. All right, as you're developing this paper, something to pay attention to is organization. You want to, maybe even before you write your draft, or maybe after you've written your first draft, but before you present it to your peers, make a list of all of the different kinds of oppositions, all the different kinds of critiques. And then make sure that you've addressed each one of them in a logical order. You're going to lead the reader through each of these ideas. You want them to understand what you understand. You want to represent them fairly and objectively, but you also want to be sure that everything is there and in a format that's easy for the reader to follow. Just like with your Project 2, you are guiding people through territory that you've had to map out for yourself. The last thing I want you to pay attention to as you write Project 3 is this. I know I'm asking you to write about the positions you don't take. I know that. And I know it's very, very difficult for a lot of us, especially if you're writing about something you care about. It's very, very difficult not to let your position creep in. Don't do it. Save that for Project 4. You get a whole project where you get to make your argument. Right now, you're making other people's arguments. So as you go through it, it's going to be so tempting to rebut those points, or even just to add an introduction or a conclusion where you say, this is wrong. I already know you don't agree with what you're writing. I know that. But I want to see that you've treated it with objectivity and with fairness. The more objectively you treat these positions, the more seriously the reader will take you. And I guess that's where I really want to close this mini lecture, this explainer. Our goal in making a credible researched argument isn't to make your opposition look like you think they're stupid. Okay? What you want to do is say, I hear the other solutions, I've thought about them, I've treated them seriously, and I've got a better way, and here's the better way. That's always going to be more convincing in your personal life or in your academic arguments if you treat the opposition seriously and if you really try to understand where it comes from. Because remember, at the end of the day, rhetoric is all about persuasion. Rhetoric is about using those available means of persuasion. One of the available means of persuasion is establishing a connection and saying, we've got a common goal. We disagree about how to get there. The more you can keep that focus in mind, the easier it's going to be for you to write these counter positions. All right. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me. If in the process of writing this project, you suddenly find that you've got a position you can't find a rebuttal to, and it suddenly changes the argument you think you're going to make in Project 4, don't panic. Let me know. I can help you work out ways to think about it, or I can encourage you and say, well, maybe in that point, you got to change your thesis. That's good. That's the research process. That's learning. Again, be in contact. I'm looking forward to see what you come up with.